Hello, 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 hello. Today I'm talking with Don Gray. We talked about learning to listen and being self employed for plus 40 years.
I'm Ivanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it.
Hello, hello everyone, and hello with me I have Don. Good evening. Well, for me it's evening. What's the time on your side?
It's mid-afternoon here in the eastern side of the United States.
And well, actually, that's something I want to show. I'm here in Belgium, in Ghent, and let's ask Google to fly a little bit to where you are, and you should be there in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, somewhere, if I'm.
Somewhere near the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. There's two
Well,
entrances in North Carolina, and what?
well, I don't want to help stalkers to give an exact location, you know, that.
Well, of all the things I have not had yet in my life as a stalker, it's never too late to try to get one.
That's a way
Yeah,
to look at it. I'm not sure that people had starters would agree, but yeah,
yeah,
it's a way of life. To would say let's there
yeah.
is never
No,
it's never too late for anything positive or negative.
but that's true, and it's never too late. So yeah, I was just going to say there's two entrances to the
Hmm.
park in North Carolina, and I live between them.
Hmm.
So it's about the
Right.
same amount of time to get into the national park. I was there hiking yesterday.
Wow. Okay. And is that something that you do regularly?
So yes, we moved to this part of North Carolina when my wife retired from school teaching because we were always coming up here to hike, whitewater kayak, and bike. So rather than drive 3 hours, we just moved to where we were always going for recreation.
Well, that's very much understandable. Uh,
Well,
well, we have kind of already jumped into it, but before we jump to the questions, Don, what do you want people to know about you? For the few people that don't know you yet.
for the few people that don't know about me, the one thing I would say is I still have hope that we can make software development a better experience for software developers, for managers, and for users. Um,
Hmm.
I started 42 years ago. I've been self employed my entire career, and um, it, I still have hope. We're still fighting some of the exact same problems that we had 42 years ago. Uh, Recently, there have been changes in culture and in uh, some businesses that make me think that there is a positive, better future for those people who are coming behind me.
Hmm. That's a nice way of well, hoping to leave the world in a better place in one way or another.
I think most people would like to leave the world in a better place. There's a handful of people. I was just reading something on Mastodon from Sun Tzu that says an evil. Oh, and the reason I'm looking over here is because that's the monitor that the quote is
Hmm.
on. An evil man will burn his own nation to the ground to rule over the ashes. And so there are those people in the world who will do that. But I think by and large,
But
most of the
even they
people,
might be considering that they will leave the world a better place, but then better for themselves and not so much for the rest of the world. Yeah.
well, yes, better for themselves. And it's that we're not, who somebody said no man is an island.
Mm.
And we can do more things together than we can separately. There's a limitation to the ability of a single person. Uh, Boyd, John Boyd wrote a great article called Destruction and Creation, where he talks about the reason we form societies, we work together, is so that we can accomplish more as a group than we can accomplish individually.
Yeah, I think many people here, or well, in general, would agree with that. That's definitely a nice thing to do.
I
Well,
suspect
go ahead.
since you invite people, you're going to invite people who have a similar worldview, most likely, than some radical, let's burn everything to the ground type person.
Well, I hope so, but at the same time, people like you are the ones who invite other people. So there might be a little risk, but indeed, I do hope that people like you would invite similar kind of minded people. I do keep myself the right to say, okay, that's a person that I would not want to do, but so far I've never needed it. But if I do feel that it would be a kind of person that would burn things to the ground, that's something I would not be interested in talking to. And there have been people that kind of invited themselves, like, why haven't you invited me yet? So that happens as well.
And I have been laying awake at night wondering why you have not invited me yet.
It's a joke and it's not a joke. It's usually white male people that reply to me. I was waiting for the invitation, or I was, it's the women that then say, "Oh, you sure?" Because I'm not sure that I belong, and then I have to reply a few times. But not always. There is exceptions in both directions as well.
You know what?
So yeah.
You know, it took me a while to work through deciding to accept, because do you really need one more old white man on this on this broadcast, on this list of videos? I'm fortunate. I've worked hard to get where I am, but compared to other people, I started at mid-court because I'm white and male, and in the industry, and especially in the United States, that gives you an inherent systemic advantage.
It's well, and for me, I've been struggling a little bit also around that, with who would I invite and keep pushing, and or keep asking. Pushing is the wrong word, I would say, but it's also what I've noticed is that I'm really interested in the voices of the future. Like, okay, who are these new people that can bring our new ideas? And at the same time, I also noticed that this is also the moment to celebrate the people like yourself that have so much experience and bring into the world, because I've noticed more and more after 20 years in the Agile community that the new people don't always know the people with more experience, and sometimes that's really sad, because that there is some knowledge and where things are coming from. So it is indeed a very hard balance to know where to go and on what and who to invite. But so far, like I said, I have about 800 people on my invitee list, about 300-400 invited at this point. So still a long way to go, and I'm pretty sure I will never reach the end. I don't intend to keep doing this for 10 or 20 years. That's not the goal. But I every year in December I decide, will I continue for another year, and so we're recording this in the beginning or almost halfway June. So I still have half a year to go before I decide if I'll continue next year or not. So yeah. So, Don, let's jump into that very first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
So, something most people don't know about me. I'm the son of a Baptist minister. So inflicting help is something that I've had to overcome. I was raised, and as people, we are generally trying to be useful to other people to help them achieve something they may not be able to do on their own. You'll notice I did not use the word help when I talked about that. When there's a great book by Edgar Schein called Helping, and he talks about when you start to use the word help, you create a status differential. You're upstating yourself to the other person, and when you upstatus yourself, downstatus the other person, that may make them more reluctant to accept help. If you're in a power differential situation where an outside agile coach, for example, which I did for several years, and you're dealing with a manager who's having difficulties or concerns about how do I fit into this new paradigm? How do I still function? Am I losing my job? When you upstatus yourself from that person, you create a situation which is difficult to come back from.
And this is the book you're talking about, I think, yeah?
Yes, Helping by Edgar Schein. It's a good book. It's one of the ones. He's got another one on humble consulting, and Humble Inquiry is another book by Edgar Schein that are excellent books. I can't say that Dad was the major thing. I was also involved in swiftwater rescue instructing, so I was an instructor for swiftwater rescue. I was an EMT, member of a high-angle rescue team, and these are things.
Rescue team, I'm hearing that means, by definition, your job is to help people to save their life.
Yes. Yes.
So you feel very entitled at that moment to do the thing that you need to do. Because
well,
that's your job.
And you can say help in this case. You know, I'm not saying I never use the word help, but I try to be careful when I use it. Yeah, and then the other one, Swiftwater Rescue, you are teaching people not what to do should they get in trouble, and how to stay out of that trouble. So the way these played out, it's directly applicable to coaching and software. You know, how do you get out of this situation? How do you not get into this situation? And be calm. If you're in a rescue situation and you're running around as a rescuer screaming and yelling and your hair is on fire, the person you're attempting to rescue and or assist is not going to be very calm. And you really want this person to be very calm. Short story, I was kayaking and we came down a river, and at the very last rapid a guy flipped and his helmet came back and he ended up with a bloody cut on his forehead. And so I said, well, okay. We got him to shore. I said, okay, now we got it stopped. He said, now you want to go to the first, just be calm. The scalp is very vascular. There's a lot of blood vessels in your scalp. So it's okay that it's bleeding. The water is making it look worse than it actually is. Just relax. Don't get wild. Don't get crazy. But when you get home, be sure you go see your doctor and have it looked at. And about 2 years later, I was sharing that story in a rescue class, and the guy was like, yes, and he goes, that was me, and it took 19 stitches to close. I said, but my job at the moment was to talk him down, get him calm, and you make better decisions. Your brain has two major parts. Your brain's got a lot of major parts, but you have the amygdala, and you have the prefrontal cortex. And you have to get past the amygdala, the fight, flight, freeze syndrome, and engage the prefrontal cortex to where you can think and relax. And if your amygdala is running wild, you never make it to the let's just be calm and talk about this part of the conversation.
It reminds me when you say it, it's like yelling at the child, like, okay, stop running, and yeah, that never, the only thing they hear is run. I mean, don't run or whatever. It's like, no, that doesn't work. It
Well,
works better to say, okay, walk slowly or something like that, and say stop
well,
running or
and words, our brains filter out words. Don't. A common phrase here in the United States is, don't forget the car keys. What your brain hears is, forget the car keys. It never hears the don't. So at our house, and this is something I've come to probably in the last 10, 15 years, is remember the car keys. Always try to approach it from a positive or a neutral statement as opposed to a negative don't type statement.
Yeah, I like that. And so the second part of the question was, how did it influence you? You talked already partially about your father and the inflicting help. Where did you notice this, or when did you first notice, like, oh, I'm actually inflicting help, or not rescuing people, and yeah.
Oh, when did I notice it? Actually, it was probably fairly early in my career. This would have been, I guess, back in 85, 86 timeframe. I noticed that I was giving advice and telling other people what to do. Telling adults what to do is an activity fraught with peril. In other words, it doesn't work well. It doesn't work well with teenagers. It works less well with adults. And to achieve common good outcomes, I had to learn to, well, first listen. What is this other person about? We have different ways of presenting information. Some of us talk in visual language. Other people use hearing type words, adjectives, adverbs, nouns. And none of us has the absolute truth. There's a organization called the Human Systems Dynamics Institute, HSD Institute, Human Systems Dynamics. And they talk about 4 truths. There's my truth, there's your truth, there is an absolute truth, like the speed of light we know is 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. And we can measure that. That's true. We can know that. And then when you combine all of those 3, you get the truth that we agree on. And so the 4 truths was very helpful. Now that came along much later in my career. That would have been 2010, 2012 timeframe. But Human Systems Dynamics helped me put a lot of models to things that I had noticed implicitly or explicitly. They gave me language that I could use to share that type of information.
And when you say the 4th truth is the combination of the things, or is the thing that we both agree on, what if people disagree on? Is there then
that's not a common truth. That's not, if you don't agree that it's true, then there's just the 3 of them.
All right. Yeah.
I mean, one of the phrases that I don't necessarily care for is, well, we'll just have to agree to disagree. Not one of my favorite phrases, but sometimes you will never agree with you do not agree with someone, let me say it that way, on some particular topic. I've been married for 38 years, and my wife and I still don't agree on everything. But there's enough stuff that we agree on that the stuff we don't agree on, we just keep going on. Esther Derby and I think you mentioned Esther was on the,
Exactly.
yeah. We've been business partners for 25 years, one way or another. First was with the AYE conference. Then Esther and I created a workshop called Coaching Beyond the Team. And now we both facilitate the problem solving leadership workshop. And there are still things we don't agree on, but often it's one of us will have a slightly better way of approaching something. We have different outlooks, we have different personalities, we observe different things. And so that actually, because we're different and we don't always agree, that gives us a better outcome because we have a broader view. We can consider more items. It's like we were talking about earlier, PairCoaching. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, PairCoaching.net. It just works better if there's two people, because especially when you're facilitating a workshop, while one person is guiding, the other person can be observing.
And well, for me, because I've been in a couple of workshops or trainings, whatever we call them, that you and Esther did also together with the late Jerry Weinberg. And for me, if you would be exactly the copy of Esther, then there would not be a value for me to have both of you there, because then one of you would have been enough. And it's, for me, that's the exact thing. The fact that both of you are there and that you give sometimes a slightly different opinion, that is interesting. What I have noticed as a trainer is when I say one thing, if I say only one thing, people will take my thing or the complete opposite if they disagree. If I give them two options, they will still pick one of my two options. But if I'm doing a training with someone else and I say A and the other one says B, for whatever reason, it's easier for participants to then say, oh, there's multiple options. And then they think of C and D, which is actually what is much more interesting for me. Less good for my ego, but much better for them.
Well, Jerry wrote a paper, this was probably back in the 60s, called Egoless Programming. And you can Google egoless programming, and I think the article is on the internet and people still talk about it. It's not, if you can separate your ego from the product or the outcome, then you can inspect the product, the outcome, the whatever, and look for improvements, because your self-worth is not tied up with the product.
Exactly. I think the concept at least is also mentioned in the first book that I read from him. I can't come up with the name, of course.
Okay, I'm going to give you the name, because the next time I forget the name, you can tell me the name. Psychology of Computer Programming.
Exactly, that's the book I was thinking about. I was also thinking, I know it's somewhere there, but of course, that moment that I want to look for it, I won't find it. But yeah, it's for me, it was a life-changing book. I still regularly, well, not as regularly as I probably should, but from time to time flip through it, because it's still, I might not agree anymore with everything that is there, but still it's so much good thinking that book gives me.
And I think that some of the stuff Jerry wrote is somewhat, we have moved beyond that in our understanding of people and working together and how we represent that knowledge. But the basics, the fundamentals, I think are largely still applicable.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And well, not just this book, because he's for the people that don't know Jerry, look him up. Look up a lot of the books. We'll maybe later talk or mention some other books, but so definitely most of his books are really wonderful to read. And yeah.
In some of his earlier books, like General Systems Thinking, make your head hurt because they are so scientific, so mathematically oriented that you'd want to. So I was reading them shortly after college, and so the math was fairly current. It was current enough that I went, oh yeah, I remember seeing that in college. Now I'm not even sure I'd remember that. But as he continued to write, somewhere in the mid 70s, perhaps with psychology of computer programming, his writing became much more readable. And then you get to a book like The Secrets of Consulting, where he has all of these memorable rules, like the orange juice test, or every problem is a people problem. No matter what they tell you, it's always a people problem.
I literally said that or phrase to that book and that phrase last week again when I was for another client. Like, okay, it doesn't matter what they tell you. It's there is always some people problem, and a lot of rules like that. I would say not just for consultants or consultants, maybe in the broader term, anyone who wants to help out and is asked for help
if you're in a capacity, whether you're a manager or a senior lead, these are aphorisms. They're little cute sayings that will apply to you as you are working with other people inside the organization, whether you're internal or external. It applies to both. Absolutely.
Exactly. So, we've moved already in multiple directions, multiple things with just one question. Let's move to that second one. If you had not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what would have become of you?
So the major shuffle would have been, if I had not ended up in this particular branch, if I had not gotten into control systems engineering, most likely I would have been a naval officer. I was a Navy officer for several years, and I would have probably made that a career. But I ended up in doing control systems, which I'm the guy who wrote the program that controlled the machine that made the product. And from there, I became a systems integrator, which means I'm now not only writing the software, I'm buying the hardware and combining the two. And that's about the time I met Jerry. I went to Problem Solving Leadership in 1995. And suddenly my world started shifting. It shifted slowly. I still had one more technical phase that I was working through, and I call it the techno hammer. So I got rather good at some specific software, and the company that made the software would say, that company over there needs your help, go help them. And so I called it the techno hammer. I would parachute in, solve the problems, and that gets back to the talk people down. You're not going to solve any problems running around. Just relax.
You were parachuted in to help them, but basically to solve their problem for them, and not teach them how to do it themselves, or not even listen to them, or how should I see it?
So they certainly, I listened to them in terms of what the problem is. And it was typically a technical problem that they had created somehow. In working with them, I was usually working with a specific individual or group where I was sharing what I was doing, You want to feel old real fast? I remember the first time I modified an autoexec.bat file, and some younger person said, "How did you know to do that?" It's like, oh no, I'm getting old. But let's see, your question was, yeah, so I was there to solve a problem, and it was generally a technical problem. It was always a technical problem. Servers weren't getting data from the field. Like there was one client was an oil company, and they have wellheads all over the place that come back to a concentration unit where they collect data. And from that data, it goes back somewhere to a server. And as things were shifting in the 90s, early aughts, 2000s, some people weren't connecting things correctly. The pipes weren't connected properly, let's say it that way. And that was a really fun time. I even wrote an article for Sticky Minds, I think, called Skills for Software Smoke Jumpers. You can find it's on donaldegray.com, my website. And it pretty much talks about what you need to do to become a smoke jumper. And then eventually I got into the people side of the problem, and that was been about 2005. And I've been.
When you so was there a moment, like at the last moments that you were that kind of technical person, that you already noticed like, oh, I should work more from the people side, or how did that shift move? Because I'm asking because it's a very typical path that I sometimes see is that, okay, we're very technical, and then somehow a shift happens, and I have some colleagues that or ex-colleagues or people I've worked with that sometimes wonder, should I move into that direction or not? And I don't want to leave my technical side. So how did that go for you?
Slowly. Actually, there was a gentleman by the name of Jim Bullock, who I had met through the AYE conference. And he was a consultant, and he was working with a company that was doing telephony IP. And he needed somebody who understood a little bit about electronics, boards, manufacturing, but he also needed manager. Somebody who could manage this team. And so from there, so I went from doing the work to this one client who I worked with for a few months, where I was kind of the bridge. I was doing a little bit overseeing the guys who were actually doing board level work. This company was even creating their own BIOS. So they were going in and modifying the Broadcom BIOS. And, they had the production area where you had to put on your jacket and you have to ground strap yourself. Everything where you go, you got to be grounded, and that sort of thing. And from there, I just sort of ended up in management. I do regret a little bit. I'm no longer the technical whiz bang that I used to be. There are times that I miss that, but I find I'm very happy and I'm very fulfilled working with people. It's I don't know what the answer is. I do know someone early on. This would have been in the 1988 timeframe. One of the guys. So I've always been either a contractor or a consultant. Somebody who works external to the company. And one of the guys that was my quote unquote manager got promoted into management. And after 6 months, he went to his boss and said, "Never mind, send me back down. I'm not happy here." So he was able to come back as a senior process engineer and go back to doing the work he loved.
That is so important because somehow, well, I've seen in a lot of companies that there is no, how would I say it, no career path for technical people. In some places, the only way to advance in your career is go into management, where not everybody is happy. I have coached a couple of people. I even at some point a person who moved up a ladder was not that happy, was misunderstood by management, and he moved up again. They thought, okay, he wanted to go faster, but he was actually more and more unhappy. It took a long while to and long conversations and even lots of discussions for him with his partner because of course now money is involved. If you move up twice the ladder, there's a lot more money. There is also a lot more status, a bigger car, whatever. Because in Belgium, we get many managers get cars. Oops, I don't know what my camera is going on to, but I'll fix that. But yeah, that was really hard for that person to move and go into different direction. That was
Yeah, well,
really hard.
some of the organizations I can think of two specifically that I've been involved with recently have parallel paths. Now, I'm sure by the time you get to CEO, there's not a CEO in the technical ladder. But you go up to senior engineer, principal engineer, and you can advance several layers above what used to be common. It used to be like, you're tech lead. Now your choice is either stay at tech lead or go into management and manage others. And they're both can be very rewarding, but they're both very different. And so I've seen some movement and these are larger organizations that are doing
I
this.
was about to say this is typically for larger organizations where they've learned it probably the hard way, or they've learned it at least, I don't know if it's the hard way or another way, but they've learned that they have to pay attention to that. Unfortunately, not everywhere. This is why I personally am in favor of when people are interested in moving to a management role, especially a management role, move up a level, to try it out, not have the official title, but try it out, not have any money to it, but just try it out for a couple of months and only then officially get the promotion. Because then it's much easier to go down. Then there is no shame, there is no discussions. It's just like, well, we'll just do this experiment for a couple of months for whatever reasons. Sometimes people feel, especially their environment might say, okay, but they're taking advantage of you or whatever. But yeah, if you do it in the opposite way, you get the title, you get everything. If then you're unhappy, it's really hard for people to go back to the job. And they typically move to another company to do again the thing that they done before. It is a hard thing to do, and so thank you for talking about that and bringing that subject up, because I think it is important in our technical industry that people realize that these are two different paths. Not one part is better than the other, it's just different. And for some people it might work in both places, for others it's actually only one that would work. But it's important to talk about it. So yeah.
Well, and you spend most of your adult life at work.
Oh yeah.
So to be miserable for most of your working life or waking hours is a horrible thing.
Yeah, at some point I remember when I was with a certain client. Now I'm talking 20 years ago, 2005, something like that. I was talking almost 6 hours a day with a certain colleague that was on the other side of the world using Skype. And I do remember thinking at that moment that I was talking more with that person than I was talking with my partner at home. Because I wasn't talking 6 hours a day, every day with my partner. That was like, that's insane. And if I would not have had a good connection with that person, that would have been a horrible job at that moment. That would have been really, really bad. So yeah, I'm really happy that that you bring that up. It is important. We spend so much time of our adult life awake at work. It's really bad to be not happy
Well,
at that what we're doing there.
and then just to carry it one step further, when you get to be a certain age, and I'm not going to say what age I am, I will admit that I am older than GeePaw, but I am younger than Ron Jeffries.
Okay.
So, so that gives you boundaries. You start to wonder, is this how I want to spend my time? Do I want to spend the next 6 months, 3 months, whatever, working on another project that I can tell right now is going to fail? Or would I rather just go find another client? Would I rather enjoy my life? That becomes I only have, when you're young like you, time is boundless. When you're my age, it's like, okay, the number of trips left around the sun are getting smaller and smaller. And so that also starts to factor into, am I willing to work with this particular client?
I like that as a way of looking at it because, well, in a way, sometimes when we're asked to help a transformation or to help a company move in a certain direction, helping, again, be very careful using the
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
It's typically that they know that they have some kind of problem, and in many cases, I'm leaving when things get better, so I never feel the advantages, and in a way, that's very masochistic. But like you say, if I would feel it right from the beginning, that nothing would be moving, if I would not have a good connection with the person hiring me, why would I do it? I would just be really miserable. So yeah, I should always have the feeling like, yes, I can contribute. If not,
And
I should send someone else.
and the one thing I will say that of the programs and whatnot that I've been involved with, I have always managed to connect with someone. And just recently, a client I worked with in 15 and 16, there was a particular person with whom I spent a fair amount of time working. Okay, what does agile mean? How does this thing work? How should it work? There was a little bit of coaching them in that they were a very nice person, and the other teams that they were working with were very adamant, structured, demanding, and always seeming to take advantage of this person. And they just popped up, I don't know, a couple of months ago. So we're talking 6 years, 7 years, 8 years later, something like 8 years, 9 years later, and we still have a connection. Now, it's not that we're best friends, we don't talk all the time, but from time to time we get together and chat, and who knows, there might be business that I'm willing to work on coming up. So while the overall engagement might not have turned out how I had hoped, in everyone there has been somebody that I was been able to connect with and hopefully impact their trajectory in their career.
That's indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. See now,
because we can keep going and we keep going. So, but let's move on to that next question, because, well, in a way that we already talked a little bit about challenges and hard parts. What do you consider your current biggest challenge, at least the one that you want to share openly on the internet, and why is that a good thing for you?
Wow. What is my biggest challenge? Time management, probably. I have so many things that I'm doing. I have no idea how I managed to work, advance in my career, raise 3 children, and do all the other stuff I did. Uh, I, that's really not a problem. You said challenge, not problem. I'm going to take a pass on that. Maybe we'll get back to it later. Next question. I don't know. I've been very fortunate. I've been able to pick and choose clients. I guess one of the things that I'm being challenged with now is as I look forward over the next 5 years, who will I look to replace me as a facilitator for problem solving leadership? The number of people who had the chance to work with Jerry Weinberg face to face and get to know him like Esther and I did. Esther and I, we were partners in the AYE conference. So once a week we met with Jerry as we were scheduling and working on the conference for each year. The number of those people are dwindling quickly. So the challenge becomes what's important to understand to carry the work forward. What year did you do? You've been to PSL, am I correct?
I did. I'm trying to think what was the year. I should look it up. 2008, maybe something like that. I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Close enough. You would still recognize the arc. So the arc of PSL has not changed significantly. I took it in 95. But how we share the information, how we explain the learnings, we talk now about complexity theory as, like massive interactions of agents. I doubt that was mentioned at all in your PSL. The emphasis on personality. Personality was a big thing. I remember it. But now every company usually has some sort of a personality module that the employees go through, whether it's Myers-Briggs, social styles, DISC, the 4 colors, the big 5. Everybody has some idea that people are different. These are some of the ways they are different. And you need to learn to work with these other people. So that takes up less time of the workshop than other things. So this is the sort of challenges. Maybe that's the challenge: is how do we keep problem-solving leadership relevant as time goes by?
Mm-hmm. And it's I love that you bring it up because it's it's the bar is high to replace Jerry, and nobody can replace Jerry.
No,
so
nobody can.
And I was I was one of the supporters when I originally heard that you would keep going PSL. I was like cheering because I was like, yes, this is a tremendous thing. This has had a huge impact on my life, and I know on, I think, almost everybody who was there with me and a lot of other people that I know that have been there. So I think it's really important, and I think you and Esther said right from the start, we're not going to try to replace Jerry. We'll just do it in our way, with respect, with him, with consent from him. From what I understand, that was discussed with him, And
Oh,
so, yeah, there's.
and we started making changes before he died in 2018, and we talked with him and said, "This is how we gonna do this," and he was fine with it. So, and
But I love that how you already think ahead, like, okay, this should continue because that is a legacy that is important. Yeah, that I'm really
it's
happy.
it's more than the legacy for us is the impact it still makes on participants. It's amazing the number of people that come back months, years later and go, yes, and at this point in time, suddenly I flash back to something that happened at problem solving leadership. And I said, that's why. And they were able to make a connection between what they experienced in PSL and what they were trying to accomplish now. So it's something that, well, as Jerry said, the world still needs this.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah, so I agree there. And yeah, I want to go back a little bit also to what you said about time management, because it's I think a lot of people struggle with time management. How do we deal with the work that we do, the things that we do? And somehow, well, I'll just speak for myself, but I think it's also for others. I've also had the idea, okay, this is hard because I'm young and blah, blah, blah. And when I will get older, things will get better. And then here you are and saying,
It
I
does
still
not.
struggle with it.
It does not get better. The only thing it gets is faster.
And in a way, I also heard you say it's even more precious to solve it because you don't want to spend too much time doing things that don't make you happy in a way.
Well,
Or
absolutely. I think you've nailed that one or synthesized that aspect of the conversation, which, as you pointed out, has wandered all over. Yeah, there's just a certain amount of time, and it's all you've got, and you don't know when it's going to end. I'd like to think I'm good for another 10 years in the business. I have no idea. And then I want 20 good years after that, and then I want to start my second childhood.
That's what we all hope it is, and we have no
Yep.
idea indeed when
Indeed.
there is a Belgian artist, and of course I can't come up with his name right now, but I'm pretty sure I will put it in the show notes, that created a very small device, and it shows you the percentage of your life you still have left. It's a gadget. It's, as far as I know, you have to give in the birth date, but then a lot of it is random. But it's just a very, and it's the only thing it does. That gadget just shows a percentage. And it's a good way. It's a kind of, yeah, it's an art thing, but at the same time, it's a kind of reminder for people like, you know what, you don't have eternal life. There is something. And when I heard about that, I was like, yeah, I'm not sure if I would like to have such a device because it would show me that there is not much, even if it's random. At the same time, it's important to tell people like, look, well, every day you do something that you don't like, you lost a day that will never come back.
Yeah.
That is
Hence the phrase, well, that's 2 hours I'll never get back.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move to that next question. What drives you? Because I think in here and I've seen this, of course, a lot when I do this conversation, is that there is a lot of passion with you for doing the right things, for keeping PSL alive and a lot of other things. Do you know where that drive, where that passion is coming from? Was that always there with Little Don, or how should I see that?
We suspect, based on things my parents have told me, Little Don had ADHD. Little Don, however, was born at a time when that was called, he's just being a boy. This is what boys do.
Right.
So, what was the question? What was the question again? Can you pop the question up again? What?
The question, the exact question is what drives you, and the sub question is that I ask is did you always have that drive or that passion? I sometimes use both intermingle drive and passion, but for a lot of people it's different. So I'm not sure which one you.
I'm going to go with passion. For me, drive has negative connotations. So when I was actively looking to coach or find new clients, drive was what I call a tripwire. So a tripwire is a defensive perimeter you set up in a military situation, and if they trip it, information gets shared. There's something wrong. And for me, drive, when you're talking about a people or a people organization, and they use the word drive, that tells me they have a specific mindset that is direct, causal, mechanically connected, and falls underneath Newtonian thinking. And so let's talk about things that you drive. And we'll get back to your question probably before our time is up. I drive a car. I drive nails. I drive golf balls. I drive cattle. Now, if you say drive, that's what comes to my mind. So I don't use, it was a tripwire for me. When I see somebody saying, well, we're going to drive, and your job as the Agile coach is to drive this team to success. That tells me that their view of people and my view of people are so dissimilar that it's not even worth carrying the conversation. Normally it's like, well, I don't think it's going to be a fit, but if I could think of anybody, I'll refer them to you. And of course I never do. So passion. I'm probably going to go back to hope. I'm hoping for a better world. And a better world is different for all of us, but one in which we can all pursue our hopes, our wishes, our dreams, happiness. We've talked about how miserable it would be to spend 40 hours a week if you're lucky, 60 hours a week if you're American, 80 hours a week if you're in a startup. That's a lot of time to not be happy or engaged with what you're doing. So my passion is to try and create a place where people can pursue what makes them happy. And that, let's move on from there, because there's a lot of that not happening in the United States right now, and I'm just going to put the period there and move on.
We're recording this, like I said, 12th of June, and I would say by the time this will be published, the world will again be different, and I have no idea. I can only hope that things will move a little bit better, that now people will realize much more, but only time will tell.
Yep, only time will tell.
Let's move to, we talked already about challenges, but let's talk also about achievements. What do you consider your biggest achievement? And what I've noticed when I talk about this, basically this is your moment to brag and to be really proud. Is that easy for you, Don, to be proud? Is that something that comes naturally to you?
I'm better at it than I used to be. being raised in a Protestant work ethic where you're never quite good enough, there's always room for improvement. That stuck with me a long time. And then there was one time I was working with a person much smaller than I am. I mean, stature-wise. And I said something self-deprecating, and she got in my face and said, "Don't you ever say anything like that again." That was Johanna Rothman. And I have never said anything like that since.
Johanna has the effect on people like that, I would say.
I would say.
But yeah, okay. So
there was a couple things. One, I have been self-employed for 42 years. When I got out of college, I interviewed with my ex-wife, and they said, "Well, we want to hire you both. Which one of you?" But we can't. So one of you can be a contract programmer, one of you can be an employee. And my ex-wife said, "I want to be the employee." And I said, guess that makes me the contract programmer. What do you pay contract programmers? And they gave me an hourly figure. And one of the things as an engineer I've learned is fast math, fast, simple math. And I did the math. I said, "I'll go to work for that." And somehow I just never got hired. I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of friends send work my way, help give me advice. I don't recommend that as a way. If you want to start a business, I do not recommend doing it my way. I absolutely do not. Remember Johanna Rothman? She's just published a recent book about how to succeed as an independent. I did write a little blurb for it. I recommend it highly. It's a good book. If you want to do it in a sane, reasonable, intelligent fashion. Obviously, that says mine was insane, not that smart, but it worked.
But you were in a way you were thrown by surprise in a way, because they said this is an option where you were not thinking about that at that moment, if I understand correctly.
No, I was fresh out of college. Now I was older. I spent 4 years on the active duty military between high school and college. So I was almost 30 when I graduated from college, because I also picked up a wife and a child. So that meant I had to space out classes and whatnot, but I did finally graduate.
And I want to, before we move on, I want to show the book, because I like Johanna's book as well. Successful Independent Consulting. I think that's the book that you were talking about.
Yes, that is the book to which I was referring.
And I will add the link to Leanpub as well, where people can download it, which is typically the one where you'll find the digital version, but for me, I like to prefer Leanpub, because that brings the authors most money in most cases.
Absolutely.
It's a little, what is it? Push for Leanpub as well.
Yeah.
That helped a lot of people. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, the one other thing that I don't know, that I can't say that I'm proud of, but I'm certainly happy with, is when Jerry was no longer able to facilitate problem-solving leadership, which is, for those who haven't heard, 5.5 days of experiential workshop. And it can be very taxing physically and emotionally for everyone. I mean, it's not like you're running around doing push-ups or jumping off buildings or doing trust falls, but it's very active and very mentally engaging.
And it's also, I think, different to a lot of trainings. It's, for me, it's almost 24/5 then. I mean, it's not just
Yeah.
the
Oh,
9 to
yes.
5 class. There is evening things. There is, yeah, it's
Yeah.
you arrive, and from the very first second, yeah, it's different until you go home. And like you said earlier
Yeah.
on, it still has a lot of effect later on. So, and I can imagine that for the trainers, for the people who are helping out, that it's yeah, a lot of energy that it takes from
Yeah.
you as well.
And I'll never forget. So Jerry and Esther called me, and I was coming up. Well, I don't know, and da 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 da. And I'm going through these, and Jerry said, "Don, you've been preparing for this your whole life. Just do it." And I had no idea how correct he was. And there's
Until
this
you started doing it,
until I started doing it. I was fortunate in that Esther and I had known each other and worked together. We developed Coaching Beyond the Team workshop, so we were familiar with each other. That helps a lot. But Dave Snowden, Cynefin person, talks about retrospective coherence, which is a big way of saying 20/20 hindsight. It sounds very intelligent, but it means 20/20 hindsight. Oh, now I connect the dots backwards. But, in 1984, when I started, I had no idea that I would end up doing this. I was happy. I mean, control systems, every time you do a startup, it's like Christmas. Eventually, everything starts, you start making product, you flip the switch, stuff starts moving. It's neat, it's cool. I had no idea that I would end up, 42 years later going, and the first thing literally the first thing we do in problem solving leadership is we start with solving a problem. So it's not like there's a long period of time ramping up to the first problem. Actually, the first problem, I don't know if I should say this, but since I've already let that cat out of the bag, they start solving problems. Participants start solving, they have a problem to solve before they even come to the workshop. So, now it's not like world hunger or thermodynamics or anything like that. It's a solvable problem, but it's a problem solving workshop. You're going to be seeing a series of problems that get more interesting as the week goes on. Yep. So anyway, that was the other thing that I'm kind of amazed. Let me say I'm amazed that a homeboy from South Dakota ended up co-facilitating problem solving leadership.
That is indeed something to be proud of and to look as something like as an achievement. On top of what you just said about doing this as a consultant for, what do you say, 40 years?
42.
42 years. So
I have written and I get a week of vacation per year. So I'm now on vacation more than I actually work.
Oh, that's that. I thought about that. Damn it. I don't think I'm even at 1 day a year. I should really look into this much better. But that gives another time management problem. Okay, let's move on. Or maybe that was already part of the next question. Do you have a personal agility tip to share?
There's only one hard and fast rule. There are no other hard and fast rules.
That's deep. I'm not even sure I understand it fully, or I'm pretty sure I don't understand it fully.
So other people would say it like hold things lightly. I have a lot of ideas and thoughts that are based on my 40 years of doing this kind of work. But all of those are from specific contexts. And as I come into a new situation, which of these apply, which don't apply? How is the context different? The contexts are always different. And the context you come into, as soon as you enter it, starts to change.
Right.
So, there's some really good ideas. The Agile Manifesto, especially the 12 Agile Principles. 12, 13? I forget. I think
12.
There's 12. Those are really good ideas. But there are times you may not want to do one of those. It may not apply. It may be the opposite of what you need. So hence the phrase, the only hard and fast rule is there are no other hard and fast rules. Now, there's good ideas, and what is it that an expert is somebody who knows when to break the rules? Something to that effect,
Yeah, the Shu Ha Ri thing, like, okay,
Yeah.
once you're at that expert level, and that is sometimes really hard, I would say, as a coach, when you explain some things to people and then the next moment you do the exact opposite, and it's like, yeah, but this work, I somehow felt that this would work here, and
Yeah.
it did work, and yes, it's the opposite of what I told you for non-obvious reasons, but it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. So I'm going to stick with the only hard and fast rule. There are no other hard and fast rules.
I really like that, because it's we talked about agile IDs, agile book. I regularly get the question from customers, we want to do agile by the book, and I always point to the books behind me. It's like, which book? Because these are, I don't know, 60, 80 books about some kind of agility, and they're all different by design because the context is different. So that there is no by the book, or there is a by the book by every book, but basically for every company you should write your own book in a way.
And what gets companies in trouble is when they say, well, Siemens did Agile, so we're going to do it the Siemens way, or Spotify, we're gonna have teams. No, let's have squads. Sorry, and we're gonna. No, that's how they solve their problem. You have a different set of problems. Andy Hunt would always say, well, you're not Netflix. You shouldn't be doing things the way Netflix is doing them.
Yeah, that's and even they don't do it anyway. The way they used to do it, because they've moved on. So even if that would have been true for you at that time, or for them at that time, this time is different. And even if they would have put it into rule and say this is the way we're going to work, then you start losing and you have troubles, because the situation has changed. And that way, I really like you. There are no hard rules. It's a very good tip, a very good way to look at things. Let's move to that next question about remote work. What have you learned about remote work, and maybe when? Because is this something? I'm really interested with your experience. Is this something you did early on? Did you do remote work, or was that only during COVID times, or what's your experience on remote work?
The first time I ran into remote work, or remote work ran into me, based on how you feel about running, I was 2010. I was working with a telephony client, and they were using a particular software package for the UI, and there were a handful of people in the world, in the United States, let me say it that way, because we were US based, who were really good at it. And so they were using the Scrum framework. And so we had, there was a guy like in Massachusetts, there was one guy actually on site in Atlanta, because I was working in the Atlanta office at the time. Maybe one in Ohio, one in Texas, and one somewhere north of Seattle, but south of the Canadian border. And it worked well enough. This was back in the days of Skype, as you mentioned. And so we had a Skype group that we just kept track of stuff in. I'm a big fan of interpersonal connections, face-to-face. That is something that I'm not as fanatic about as technology, especially with the pandemic the COVID pandemic. And it's, we're still about 500 people a week are still dying from COVID here in the United States. So I'm not sure the pandemic is over yet. But the technology has gotten much better. So, we can't sit together at a table and have coffee together, but you and I can see each other, pick up facial cues, and we can share stuff with various other apps and so on. So I'm probably still going to say I like face-to-face, especially when we're starting something new. But I think that remote is nowhere near as impossible or as difficult to create relationships. And software there's a lot of relationship building and a lot of relationships necessary in software. I think it's more doable than it has been historically. What have I learned recently? This goes back a ways, and I'm going to tell a story on Esther. We had a common client in 2016, and I was coaching the 11 U.S. teams, and then there were teams in France, India, and Israel. And so all of the coaches got together in a Slack group, and we purposely did not invite the sponsor. So we could say anything we wanted to. And then the sponsor finally found out about it, and Esther had to explain to him why he had not been invited. Because it was necessary for us to form. So there was me, there was two coaches in France, and probably 3 or 4 coaches in Israel. And for us to come together and build a cohesive approach to working with the transformation. Sometimes we wanted to blow off steam. Sometimes we had a specific question we needed answered, but we wanted to do it in an open fashion where managers were not looking at us. And that probably, since then, we've come up with Amy Edmondson's psychological safety, which is one of those things that has now been talked about and shared, and people at least are aware of it, even if they don't understand it and won't do it. That at least they know there is such a thing.
Yeah, and I really like that you almost casually mentioned, like, okay, we didn't invite the sponsor because you need to create some safe space at some point, and that really helps. And I can imagine that, I've definitely done similar kind of things, but typically I would have two groups like, okay, this is one where everybody's there, and this is one where, okay, I want to keep some people out just to make sure that it's safe. Yeah, like I know that my kids have chat groups without me and my partner in there, and of course I'm eager to know what they've shared or whatever, but at the same time I think like that's very natural.
Yeah.
Just like that. Yeah, that's really good. So that is in a way some interesting thing to say. And I'm really glad that you also mentioned like you did that already back almost 20 years ago. I think a lot of people were experimenting with. It was a lot harder than it is today. The tools
Yeah.
have become a lot better these days. And I'm pretty sure in 20 years the tools will still be improved a lot. And like you say, we can have this kind of conversation. We can see each other. I always joke that back then there was possibility to see video cameras, but it felt more like pixelate, like the way the games were that time as well. Like, yeah, we would have been happy if we recognized everybody in a way.
Was it Microsoft that had a camera and a circular phone where you could put it in the middle of a conference table, and whoever spoke, whoever picked up the sound, it would switch to that camera, so that, and then there would be a TV set on the other end and a TV set on your end. Oh, wow, that brings some flashbacks and not happy ones.
Well, yeah, I was about to say it would drive me crazy because it would flash around and it would almost get me nausea to look at from a distance. That was really horrible. I understand why they tried it out, but that wasn't definitely. I'm not sure if it. Well, I don't remember Microsoft having one. I do remember some other company that I don't remember the name. But anyway, all of these that I've saw that time that didn't really work well. But a good experiment, because the idea of seeing who's talking it was an important one. I want to move to that next question. What is a book? And I think we kind of already moved things a little bit in that direction, but what's a book that you wanted to talk about?
So the book I want to talk about is a book. The title of the book is Becoming a Technical Leader by Jerry Weinberg.
And that's the book, and that's Jerry. I
Yep.
think even with the book, no, it's another book. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that's the Aramaic project.
Exactly. But so why should people read this book? What's so wonderful about this book?
So the first thing that the book talks about is what it presents an alternative idea to leadership, to being a leader. What is a leader? There's a lot of different ways of defining leaders and leadership. There's transformational leadership. There's situational leadership. There's servant leadership. There's a lot of different things, but they always come down to one person as a leader. And this one person, whether it's setting the vision, which is useful. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a vision. So let me reframe that back to positive. You should have a vision. You should know where you're going. What's the old saying? If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there.
You will get there, yeah, exactly.
Let's see, what else? One person in charge of vision. One person, even for servant leadership, one person is making support happen for everybody. And it's you're controlling and modifying people and their behaviors is typically how these leadership models play out. Becoming a technical leader starts with the concept of organic leadership, which means everybody is a leader. So instead of one leader, everybody becomes a leader. And instead of leading people, you lead the process. So in the terms of becoming a technical leader is someone who adjusts the environment so that everyone can contribute creatively to solving the problems at hand. So now suddenly, instead of just one person, everybody can be a leader. And if you see something that needs to be changed, you change it. And that is an act of leadership. That is what leaders do. That is being a leader. So that's probably one of the baseline versions, or baseline, that's what supports the rest of the book. The book talks about, so what else do leaders do? Well, Jerry shares the MOI model, motivation, organization, and information. And you probably went through that in PSL. So if something needs to be changed organizationally, and by organization, that can be, do we have the equipment we need? Do we have the right people? Is there information flowing? Do the people who need the information have the information? If not, how do we get them the information? How do we make it so we don't have this conversation again, so that the people who need the information always have the information? Whether that's a information radiator on a wall, whether it's so way backstory. We had these things once that we called what was it? WARN, WORN, which stood for Write Once, Read Never. And that was a lot of Microsoft's early products on where they would have like big, huge wikis. But back to the book. So those are the things you talk about, motivation. He talks about, the book talks about how do you improve yourself as a leader, as somebody who modifies the environment so that everyone can contribute creatively to solving the problems at hand. Talks about communication, being current. Sometimes when you're having a conversation and it's not going well, sometimes it's one person is them, they're then. They're responding to something that's happened in their past, when you should be us here now. So it's these sorts of topics that he covers in the book, and how to become a more effective leader. So did I?
I've both read the book, been to PSL, been to AYE. There was lots of things going into my mind when I'm hearing this. The last part, them, there, then. I just had a conversation a couple of days ago with someone, but they were talking, but it's going on, it's bad for X amount of time. It's like, and I'm still trying to do it differently with some other people. And could we get past this? Like, what is it? How could we do this interaction at this particular moment? And I do understand that there were problems in the past, because that's the history that was there. But I want to focus on how could we make this work together, and look at the other things. I didn't even realize that was something I've learned from Jerry or from all of you, and probably combination.
They just keep popping up.
Exactly. So that's in that sense, and I'm really happy that you bring it up with the examples. And indeed, Becoming a Technical Leader is one of these books that have been both given away and advised to a lot of people. For the conversation we just had, if you're talking about where do you want to go, also in a technical role without having a manager role, you can be a leader, and you become that's where you can see and you can, I would sometimes say, move on to, because one of the things I see is sometimes I see a lot of people being sarcastic and seeing a lot of problems and then complaining about it. And this book kind of helps them to get past that, like, okay, the good part is you already see the problem. Now see how you can interact and get things into movement instead of into some kind of negative feeling that typically frustrates you and a lot of other people around you. So that's in that sense, it's a really good book. I want to move to, for me, one of the most interesting questions in conversations like this. What's a question that you think I should also ask you, and what's the answer?
Well, I guess the question you should ask is, why are we still suffering or experiencing many of the same problems that we started, that I first came across in the mid 80s? We still have issues defining what we need, what we should build. How long is it going to take? How much will it cost? What is quality? That's a great question. It's 40 years later, and these are still inherent questions. They're still being asked. Why are we still having problems with this? What is the answer? Well, the cynical answer is nobody holding 4 aces asks for a redeal. So what that means is the people who are at the top, and by and large, we still have hierarchical organizations. The people who became successful in the existing paradigm know how to run the existing paradigm to their advantage. Why would they want to change? And this, I think, goes back to a lot of why agile transformations don't go anywhere. It's because the people,
because the people at the top don't want to change, and they have to also change a bit. Is that what you're
yes.
implying?
Absolutely. If you're working in a knowledge-based environment, which software development at this time is a highly knowledge-based, a mid-level programmer knows more about what's going on than his manager, significantly more than the manager's manager, and infinitely more than the CEO. So unless you accept and that the people are the product, you're still going to always have this type of problem of 4 aces. I'm holding 4 aces. That's sort of okay. So now that we're almost to the end of this conversation, let me share a caveat. When Don says something, understand that this is Don's view of the world today at this moment, and I am 1/8 billionth of the total world opinion. There are examples, counterexamples to everything I've said.
And tomorrow you might say something completely different because
I'll know more.
Might have changed.
I'll know more tomorrow than I do today. I think another reason we have these same issues is the bright, shiny object syndrome. Rather than take the time to understand what has happened, what caused failures. We might fix the failure, but then we move on, and we move on so quickly that the information we learn never gets fed back into the system that created the situation to begin with. When I started in, 84, you had C was just coming in, Fortran, COBOL, RPG, PL1. You had just a few programming languages, and now you've got hundreds of different programming language and domain-specific languages. We're always off to the next thing before we have addressed our learnings from the current situation. We talk about software engineers, but engineering, the classical engineering, like mechanical, electrical, civil, chemical, spend a large amount of time studying the failures in their field so that they don't end up making that same mistake again. And there's another point to this. You're wondering if these points are ever going to end. Software development is very new. Two things. Number one, the foundations of classical engineering have been around for centuries. Software development's been around 50, actually almost 70 years now, because mid-50s is where I'm sort of counting software development starts, because it's relatively, that's when programmable punch cards and whatnot started. When you're rewiring the ENIAC computer, that is programming, but that's not, like, oh, wait, I can sit down and type this in and out comes whatever I'm looking for. And the second thing is I forgot. So I have no idea where I was going with number two. Oh, physics. The classic engineering has physical items in the real world. Electricity, you've got voltage, current, resistance. Mechanical, you've got structure, you've got weights, you've got things like that. Great article by Fred Brooks, No Silver Bullet. One of the problems with software is it has no substantiation. There's nothing in the real world that you can see. You cannot see it running. It has no mass. It's ephemeral. It's just, there's no way to see it and look at it when it's running.
Yeah, and I want to add something to these two things that I've learned here also on the podcast, and I don't know the exact number, but someone said here that on top of everything you said, the population of people programming is doubling every very small amount of years. So even if you would reach everybody this year, you would reach everybody that has been into software engineering, and you would all teach them the good things. By a couple of years, it will be double again, and so you have to start all over in a way. And of course, we never reach everybody because it's keep doubling. So that is also a part why it's so much harder to keep learning, because
And the flip side of that is barrier to entry. To become so, in addition to my father, the Baptist minister, I also had the same father who was a double electrical engineer, PE. So in the United States, after you finish your engineering degree, you work as an engineer in training, and then you take an exam and you become a professional engineer. That is a barrier to entry. Now, once you're a professional engineer, you can make the drawings, you can decide how it should be, you can sign. Once you sign it, that is a legal document. If you don't do it exactly the way my dad said to do it, you're at fault. Okay, now combine that with a Baptist minister dad, and you can tell it was one heck of a childhood. But moving on, the barrier to entry in software, all you have to do is find somebody who will pay you to write something. I need to have this. Now, I'm thinking back to the Visual Basic days. Sure, I can do that. And suddenly you're a programmer.
And that's indeed what when these days with AI, people think they might understand it more because they get some tools that help them. Right or wrong, but that barrier has went down again for more people to join without maybe fully understanding or at least believing whatever a computer is telling them. And that again, that barrier is slower there. So a lot of things why things are still the way they are, or have not improved that much since the moment that you started.
There'll always be a need for people to understand people until there are no people left in programming or in software development.
Yeah. That we can get very philosophical if we ever get there or not. But talking about people, maybe that's the right bridge to go to that next question. Who are the next people that I should ask next? Who are the people that I should invite?
So I'm going to offer three. One of whom, Andy Hunt, who is one of the signatories of the...
I think this is Andy, if I'm correct.
For some value of Andy, yes. That's a very young Andy.
It's a picture I found, and I thought, okay, that's the one.
So that's Andy Hunt. Fascinating individual. So he's a very interesting person in addition to programming. He's an author and a musician. So he writes music and also writes science fiction in addition to his other work. Michael Ong would be another person. And do we have a picture of Michael?
Yes, we have. I hope this is Michael.
Yes, that is Michael.
I didn't check the pictures with you before, so that's always a little bit dangerous if you bring up a person. But I was with Michael and with Andy, I was pretty sure.
Yeah.
So why should I invite Michael?
Michael's very involved in the Southeast Asia community. I met him at PSL in Taiwan in, I think it was 2023. When he finished PSL, he was going to bike around the island, I believe, of Taiwan. So he's a very avid biker. He's also involved with the Saktir community in Southeast Asia. So he, Stanley Lau, and a few other people, and I apologize for forgetting their names, but those are the two that I remember, are very active in software development, agile, and people as people. And the third person would be Sasha Goebbels. And we got a picture of Sasha.
I hope.
Yes,
Sasha.
That is Sasha. Senior engineering manager in some sort of a biochemical company, I believe. Uh, just fun to read. I met him in a software managers forum. I'm sorry, I met them in a software managers forum, and we follow each other on Mastodon. Um, so he's once again very human centered in his approach to managing software developers.
In their approach, yeah, it's a person that I haven't met personally myself, but it's again with that how things happen in the agile world. Sometimes
Yeah,
there are names that's like, oh yeah, that's a name
yeah.
I've been hearing or yeah seeing again. So and this is for me one of the reasons why I like so much or running who's agile by asking people to invite others, because that's enlarges my network for people that think, oh okay, yeah, that person knows this person as well, and this is why it's always interesting to have well, and then to end up with conversations like this one. Don, I would really want to thank you for your time. We're about into 2 hours. I don't know exactly because we had some technical problems before we started. So the
Indeed,
recording
we
has
did.
started some much more ago. But in the end, it worked out rather well. Then, except then for my technical problem where my camera went off for a while, that I needed to switch to my backup camera. For the people that want to connect to you, what's a good way to connect with you?
So if you want to connect with me via email, it would be don@donaldegray.com. Remember the E. I don't know who Donald Gray is. It just goes somewhere. I never see those emails. So don@donaldegray.com. If you want to read some of the stuff, including the skills for software smoke jumpers, that would be on my website.
I think that's the yeah,
Yep,
donaldegray.com
yep,
website.
that's the one. Mastodon is cleverly. I hope you've got this one written down. It's
I
Donald.
haven't, but I'll put it into the show notes because I
Okay,
didn't have the Mastodon to
I
prepare.
haven't sent you the Mastodon. I'll take
You
care.
might have, but then I forgot about it.
Okay, let me make it to do.
Um,
And then the other way is you can also reach me, don@congruentchange.com. So Congruent Change is the website that Esther and I share, where we talk about influence, we post blog posts, we talk about, well, the problem solving leadership workshop information is on that site. So I am on LinkedIn as Donald E. Gray. It's one of those.
I did prepare, so that's that should
thank
be
you.
this one.
Thank you.
And meanwhile, I did try to copy because I do follow you on Mastodon as well, and so if I'm correct, that's the one to
Yes, that Donald E. Gray at hackyderm.io.
So that's yeah, like you said,
Okay.
it's a little bit harder to remember, but I'll definitely put it into the show notes as well for people. So really, I want to thank you for your time because it takes a while, and like you said, somewhere that time management is an issue. So then I'm really grateful that you want to spend some of that precious time for you with me. So thank you very much.
Thank you for offering the opportunity to spend a couple of hours. I don't know if we've ever chatted this long in real life.
Well, probably at PSL at some point, but then there
Could
were
have been.
others as well. So
Yeah.
that's a bit. But that's for me. I think it was Lisa Atkins that said it felt like like we were just chatting at the bar after conference, and ever since she said that to me, it's like that's actually the goal that I want to have this podcast.
Yep.
It should really feel like this is us having a friendly chat. Okay, it's a little bit scripted, but it helps us to conversate and to learn about each other. And that's what I really like. And I hope that people enjoy this this conversation as much as I did. So thank you very
I
much.
hope so. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.